Hey guys, I'm Belinda, and thanks for stopping by my channel, Oh Wow, Overcomers with Our Word. Guys, today I wanted to share a commentary with you from one of my all-time favorite movies. Two of my favorite pastimes are watching movies and reading books. I just love reading. It's something about the written word where an author would take, pen to paper with this intent to guide our minds on this journey or to open up our minds to certain information, and then to see a screenwriter and director take that same information and now translate the written word into a visual dialogue on the big screen with this same intent to guide our thoughts and minds. When I go to the movies, I attempt to go for entertainment value, but that's not always possible. Sometimes I find that I'm watching and then I'm seeing something different. I am hearing something different. And then there's a certain knowing that comes. I'm seeing beyond. There's information being presented to me beyond what I'm seeing on the screen. So I'm hearing beyond, seeing beyond, and knowing beyond. And I begin to get these spiritual insights of this movie. My all-time favorite movie is Gladiator. It is filled with so much history, and it just illustrates so perfectly for me just where we are even today from a spiritual perspective, a historical perspective, a life perspective with our families. Just full of so many messages, so many takeaways that I got from this particular message. So I can't give them all to you because this would be a really long video, so I'll try and focus on my top 3 messages. I often say that history will continue repeating itself for those who don't know who they are. Because when a person doesn't know who they are, they can't fix where they are. And the key to knowing ourselves is knowing our history. And when I say our history, I mean our personal history, our family history, their life history, and our world history. How do we fit within those narratives within this world history? Another saying that you've heard me say is all roads lead to Rome. Whether it be financial, religious, militarily, all roads lead to Rome. There's a book that I would recommend, or any book rather, I'm not going to give a specific title, if you just read on the history of Carthage. And you'll get a lot of that from this movie, Gladiator. But a lot of the wars were commissioned by Rome. And in this particular movie, Gladiator, Russell Crowe is the main character, Maximus. And he's a general who happens to be a Spaniard fighting for Rome. And the tagline of the movie is Maximus the general who became a slave, and the slave who became a gladiator. So it talks about him coming full circle of what he was once led to believe, and then the cause he started out fighting, and then the cause he ended up fighting on. So as I segue from that tagline, one of the first scenes that was pretty, significant to me in the movie, Maximus in the beginning, this movie is opening up, they're going to war. And afterwards they are successful in the war, and he meets up with Marcus Aurelius, who is the emperor, and he wants to, congratulate him, says he's proved his valor yet again, but what he hopes to be for the last time. So he basically leads into another conversation of, what can I do, Maximus, to give you for this, to honor you? And all Maximus wants to do is go home. He's fought so many wars, and he says, I've been away from my family for over 3 years. So Marcus asks him, then tell me again, why are we here? Maximus has been led to believe that they're fighting for the glory of Rome. He says, I have 5,000 men who've been fighting with me. They're injured, they're bloodied, and a good 2,000 of them won't leave this place. And he says, I hate to believe that they fought and died for nothing. And this statement is so key. Marcus Aurelius asks him, and then what would you believe? What would you want to believe that this was about? And again, he thinks that they fought for Marcus Aurelius and for the glory of Rome. Marcus answers him, the emperor answers him and says, and what is Rome, Maximus? He says, because you're fighting for, Maximus believes that Rome is the light. But yet Marcus Aurelius tells him, yet you've never been there. You've not even seen what it's become. Marcus Aurelius is now in this winter of his life. And it's so interesting because the movie, as it's being fought, is being fought in the winter. And now we have Marcus Aurelius in the winter of his life. He knows that he's coming to an end. His health is failing him. And he wants to know that there was some purpose to his life. And he's concerned now how the world will speak his name in years to come, what his legacy will be. Will he be known as the philosopher or the warrior, a tyrant possibly, or can he be known as the emperor who gave Rome back her true self? And what was Rome's true self? Rome was a republic led by the Senate. And in those days, the Senate was the people. So Marcus Aurelius wanted Maximus to do this one last deed for Rome before he died. I want to give you, transfer power to you, Maximus, so that you can give Rome back to the people, that it will now be judged, it will now be ruled fairly and justly by the people, instead of letting his son Commodus rise to rulership, knowing that his son was not a man of integrity and high moral standing. So it's interesting to me that at this point in the movie, we see that Maximus has taken to fighting for causes, for a place he's never seen, a place he's never been, based upon the word of an emperor. How many of us go off into life, whether it's our working life, our spiritual lives, our family lives, how we our family dynamics with one another, that we treat certain individuals, we fight against certain individuals, we fight for certain principles based upon the word of someone that we hold in high esteem and high regard, but not for our own individual principles that we have discovered for ourselves. That was my first takeaway, that Maximus was fighting for causes that weren't his own. The next major scene, Marcus Aurelius oversees his daughter spying on a political conversation that's happening. And he goes to Lucilla and he basically tells her, if you had only been born a man, he knows she would have made a great Caesar. He says, I know you would have been strong, but his only concern, would you have been just? Her response to her father, I would have been what you taught me to be. Then I compare and contrast that with Marcus Aurelius having his conversation with his son. He wants his son to do his great deed now for Rome, and that's to agree to let Maximus rise to the throne. His son is very disheartened with that, to the point of breaking down in tears, because he begins to remember a letter that his father wrote him. He says, you talked about your 4 chief virtues: wisdom, justice, fortitude, and temperance. And he says, and I knew I didn't have any of those virtues, Father. He said, but I had my own. I had ambition and resourcefulness and courage. He said, it may not have been courage on the battlefield. And he says, but more so, I had devotion to you and to the family. He says, but none of that was enough for you. So his son becomes distraught, saying, I've searched for ways to please you, to make you proud. He said, all I wanted was a kind word from you, a hug, and wanted to know from his father, what was it in him that he hated so much? And his father goes a little longer. There's some more dialogue, but he says to him, Commodus, your faults as a son is my failure as a father. So again, as you compare and contrast his conversations with his 2 children, wishing that his daughter had been born a man because she was more fit to rule, the daughter had the wisdom to know that whoever she was, and whatever her shortcomings were, whatever her faults were, whatever her virtues that maybe her father didn't esteem so well, whoever she was, he made her into that person. But yet his son could not glean that same message. I wonder how many of us can view our parenting from that perspective. When our children do so well, we're great to praise them and take such ownership in those great qualities that we see in those children. When they do well, yeah, he got that athletic gene from me. Or she got that talent from, the father will say he got the athletic gene from him, or the mother will say she got her beauty or her talent or her grace or her great speaking ability. Whatever it is, we take ownership of those qualities in our children. But yet when we see those lesser virtues that we don't esteem so highly and so well, we don't want to take responsibility for that, as if they just developed those things out of the blue. But yet the father was wise enough to see it. The daughter was wise enough to see it. But yet the son could not develop that within himself, that I am the man, or lack of, that my father made me to be. The last scene and the last, message that I will focus on today is Maximus from the spiritual perspective. Maximus has been away from his family, as I said, for almost 3 years, and he keeps in his little satchel a figurine of his representative of his wife and one representative of his son. And whenever he goes to pray, he takes those out, he kisses them, he places them before him as he lights his candles and so forth, and he kneels to pray. He starts out praying to the ancestors, asking for guidance. And then he will talk to his mother and, ask her to come to him with God's desire for his future, because he believes she's there with him. He talks to his father and he says, I'm asking you if you will watch over my wife and son until he's able to be back with them, and to give these messages to them. If all roads lead to Rome, and we know how far back in history this goes, how is it today that when we look at Catholicism, we look at Christianity, nothing about the ancestors is ever mentioned in either forms of those religions? Because all colonization, we look at colonization and we look at the wars and that time being commissioned from Rome, how many of us are going back to trying peace? And that's why I say, again, history is so important. Who you truly are. What were your family values? What were their spiritual practices before colonization happened? What was your ancestral history? History is so important, again, because why? It shows us who we are in this greater world context. So I hear a lot of people, and I haven't seen the movie yet, and I hope to at some point in time, saying the same thing about Black Panther, that at a few of the scenes, they noticed that they gave honor and reverence to the ancestors. There is a scriptural verse now that I call upon, because now it puts a lot of things in perspective of even as I'm on my path of evolving. There's a scripture in Hebrews that said we have so great a cloud of witnesses who have gone before us. If you are studying that from a Christian perspective, a lot of us were taught that they were these people, these biblical people in the faith. I have to say, I don't know any of those biblical people in the faith for them to be my great clouds of witnesses. Now, I can read what's in the text, but I don't know those people. I will ask you, who were those family members, that great aunt, that grandmother, that great grandmother, that grandfather, father, mother, even that favorite sibling of yours who's no longer here on this earth plane with us? But who was it that was here before that loved you so dearly, that made you feel like you could conquer the world, who protected you, provided for you? Now, those people you know. So you have a great cloud of witnesses who have gone before you. I would encourage you today, maybe begin to spend some time in your meditative state speaking to your ancestors, asking for the wisdom of the ancestors. So guys, those were just 3 of my takeaways from what I feel to be is just such a great movie. If you haven't seen Gladiator, I would encourage you to do so. But whatever your favorite movies are, that you have some great life lessons or some spiritual takeaways, I ask, please share them with me. As I said, I'm a movie buff, and I would love to check out your great scenes, your favorite scenes, and your takeaways. So guys, thanks for sitting along with me. I know it's a long video. Thank you for taking the time. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate you listening to me. But again, I hope you would also share with me your great movies and your spiritual insights. So please, I hope you would take the time, like the video if you did, leave some comments, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. So in the meantime, guys, I wish you well. Live well. Be well. Take care.